Okay, we're going to talk about estimating with decimals. And it's important to talk about estimating decimals before we jump into decimal operations. And when you watch the teaching decimal operations video, which is a little bit longer one, you'll notice that I definitely talk about estimation. So we'll be revisiting that. So there are a couple of ways that we could estimate with decimals, just like there are ways we can estimate with whole numbers. We could round and get to the closest place value that we're looking for. We could use compatible numbers. But our goal is to get close to the actual answer and help students understand how to determine whether or not their answer is reasonable. So that is why I believe it is very important to focus a little bit on estimating with decimals and to continue focusing on it throughout any decimal operations that you're teaching. So if we wanted to just round and say we're going to round to the nearest whole number, we would do the same thing we do with whole numbers. If we want to round to the ones place, we're going to take the 2 and we're going to look at the 1 and we're going to determine that 1 is less than 5. So the closest whole number is 52. And the closest whole number here, if we look at the 7, it's greater than 5 is 7. So our estimate would be 59. That's one way to estimate. We could use compatible numbers. We could try to make a 10. So 52 is fairly close to 54 or 53. Sorry. If we were going to round this to 7, we could say 53 plus 7. Our answer should be about 60. We could do that. Or, as sometimes is recommended, we could just add the whole numbers, 52 and 6, and not even worry about the rounding and say 52 plus 6 gives us 58. In every case, we're pretty close, 59, 60, or 58. Our goal is to help students understand that their answer should be around these numbers. Where I don't worry too much about whether or not, they've estimated exactly to 59 and rounded perfectly, or if they've just gotten a good estimate here. Because once they add this together, they'll find that their answer is close to 59 or 60. So that's one way they can estimate as far as adding. Subtracting, same thing. We could just let them do 2 minus 1 right here and say 2 minus 1 is 1. Okay, we could do that. We could round and say 2.9919 is really closer to 3 than it is to 1. And this is close to 1. And so our answer should be 2. But this will tell us then that our answer should be between 1 and 2. And for me, my the biggest problem I've seen with students over the years is not that they can't estimate properly, but that they don't remember where the decimal point is supposed to go in their answer. And so they might do something like this when they line it up, right? And then they'll subtract. And we'll talk about this in the decimal operations lesson too. But they'll get something like this, and then they'll just be like, okay, well, I guess the decimal point should go here. And they'll pick a place to put it because they don't remember what the rule was for where the decimal point is supposed to go. And so if they were to get something like 28.8 because they did it that way, we would want them to understand that that is not close to 1 or 2, right? And so that is the goal of estimating, to help them make sure that they have a reasonable answer. When we get to multiplying, sometimes just rounding to the whole number is pretty simple. 6 times 9 is 54. If it's a basic fact, that makes it really easy. If it's larger numbers, like 23.7 times 3.9, we might encourage them to go with compatible numbers. 23.7 is pretty close to 25, and I know 25 times 4 is 100. So we could choose compatible numbers as it gets bigger. If students are not great with their basic facts and they don't know that 6 times 9 is 54, 9's pretty close to 10, so they could say 6 times 10 and get 60. They're still in the ballpark, so that would be okay. Division is the most difficult usually for students when it comes to estimating. But again, if they can try to find compatible numbers, that is most helpful. In most cases, rounding to the nearest 10 or the nearest 100 or the nearest 1 is not as helpful in division as compatible numbers. So I typically have them look at the first 2 digits in the larger number and the first digit in the smaller number. And I ask them what basic fact is close to this. What number is really close to 41 that 6 can be divided by? Or even if they changed this to 7, what number is really close to 41 that 7 can be divided by? And so even if they use their multiplication table, they should be able to find 42, and then the 8 becomes a 0, divided by 6 or 7. Sorry, 420 divided by 6 or 7. And so their answer would be 60 or 70. And that's okay. They're within a range of 10. I think that that is reasonable enough to be able to help them then determine whether or not they have a reasonable answer. So that's just a quick overview of estimating decimals. And as I said, we'll talk more about that when we get into the decimal operations lesson. Let me know if you have questions.